and welcome. My name is Shannon. My pronouns are they, them. And today we have a 60-minute prop supported restorative practice um, focusing on settling anxiety. I've had kind of an anxious week. Um, and I figure if something that I need, it's probably something that other folks need as well. So, as I mentioned today, excuse me, we have our usual assortment of props. If you're practicing on the mat or in a bed, you might like a couple blankets, a bolster, and blocks. In fact, you can use that if you're practicing seated as well. But if you're practicing seated, you might also want to grab a second chair. And as I mentioned earlier, today, a chair with a back might be really helpful for that second chair. So we can use it for one of our postures today. But if that's not around, not accessible, don't worry. We will come up with options that work for everyone. So, we'll go ahead and get started. If you would like, you can begin the practice for our grounding in a reclined position if that feels comfortable for you. Maybe lying on our back with a bolster beneath the knees. We, of course, can have a blanket over us to keep us warm. We can have another blanket under the head for a little bit of support. If we're seated, we can be seated on the mat in whatever way is comfortable. Maybe feet together, knees apart in Baddha Konasana, maybe a little bit of space, maybe a wide-legged position, maybe our legs are crossed. We have so many different options. If we're seated on our chair, usually it's helpful for our grounding to have the feet against the floor if that's something that's comfortable for us. And we'll have um, a nice comfortable position. So if we like, we can be leaning against the back of the chair. If we're more comfortable sitting upright, maybe with a pillow behind us, we can do that as well. So once we've found the position that works for us, we might take a few moments to notice the space around us, the sounds around us, make any adjustments to that if we need. Turning off a light if we'd like to practice in a little bit dimmer environment. Uh, Maybe turning on some of your own yoga music if you like. I live in the city, so I can hear sounds like cars and people and sirens, and those might occasionally come through to you in your space. But notice what's in your space as well so things don't surprise us. We might take a moment to kind of look around, and if we feel comfortable, we might close the eyes or find a soft gaze. We might take a few deep breaths, maybe in through the nose, out through the mouth, if that's comfortable for us. Maybe releasing with a sigh or vocalization, if that feels good. And then we can find our natural breath, whatever that feels like. We'll allow ourselves to land in the space on the mat, in the position that our body has found. We might let ourselves feel heavy if that feels safe for us. We might begin to notice those areas where the body is making contact with the props or the mat or the chair. And allow ourselves to rest down through these spaces, noticing that connection down, all the way down through the objects, through the floor, down into the earth beneath us, no matter how far beneath us it is today. And we might take a moment to notice maybe the feeling of that support coming back up, holding us. We are held, we are supported. And if we notice any areas of our body trying to keep ourselves up, we might see if we can release that. Allow ourselves to take up the space that we're in. we might bring our attention back to the breath, noticing the inhale and the exhale. On our inhale, we might allow ourselves to just kind of gather our thoughts. And on our exhale, see if we can release them in one direction. Sometimes when we feel anxious, we might feel like our thoughts are very scattered. And it's hard to let them go. So I find kind of the visualization of kind of pulling them together on the inhale, so that on the exhale, we can release the handful of thoughts. And we can repeat this as many times as is comfortable, as many times as we feel like we need, gathering our thoughts and releasing them out with the exhale. Gathering and releasing. Until maybe we feel like we don't have any other thoughts to grab. And I know some days that's just a endless well, and that's okay. We're looking for the big ones, the noisy ones, seeing if we can let those fade away, let those be pushed out with the breath. And maybe with our next exhale, imagining kind of a ripple of relaxation just blowing through the body. And we'll spend the next few moments here resting, allowing ourselves to be present in the moment. Tonight, we'll move through a few supported postures, shapes that invite us to ground, to settle, to trust the earth beneath us. Remembering that there's no right way to feel. There's only an invitation to stay close to yourself, an invitation to let go of the things we don't need to carry in this moment. An invitation to allow ourselves to be as we are in this moment. And then when we're ready, we might start to bring a little movement to the fingers and toes, head and neck. Allow ourselves to take any stretches, any movement that feels good or needed. And then when we're ready, we might gently roll off to the right or left side if we're reclined. If we're seated, we might allow ourselves a little rock back and forth or side to side. Maybe slowly blinking the eyes open when we're ready, if we haven't already. And we'll set up for our first supported posture. So we have two options for our first posture. I'd like to offer child's pose. It's not a pose I offer often. Generally, not a huge fan of it myself, but I have found a few variations that feel really comfortable for me. And no matter what I demo today, if you have a variation that feels good for you, please feel free to come into that option. I'll also demo the seated option after I get folks on the mat set up. So if you do not want to practice child's pose at all, no worries. Feel free to come into a supported forward fold, which I will demo in a moment if you don't already have a variation of supported forward fold in your kind of practice already. So for child's pose, again, we have quite a few options. I'm going to start with my favorite, and then I'll kind of move from there. So my favorite actually uses a chair or a couch. So I'll just kind of scoot this over to demo. And then I'll demo with a bolster. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put down a blanket because my knees like blankets. They like softness. So I'm going to offer myself that. If you would also like a blanket around your shoulders for warmth, feel free to grab that, wrap that around like a cape. Some folks like to roll a blanket, put it under the ankles, whatever feels good here. But using this bench, I'm gonna kind of come forward here. So if we're against a couch or a chair, we'll open the hips, open the knees so we have a bit of space. And then we can fold over the object, resting the head down either on the forehead or on the side of the face. And of course, we can also put a block under the bum for extra support or a bolster. Let me also demo the block and bolster variations. So for this, we have, again, quite a few options. I'm going to grab my bolster here. Oh, doesn't want to cooperate today. And we can either place it down directly on the mat, or we can place it on top of blocks to bring it up a little bit higher. This might be what's comfortable for us. A little bit higher up. I like to create a ramp. So I have one on the highest, one on the lowest. And if you don't have blocks, you can also stack pillows with one pillow, stack a couple blocks or pillows or blankets, and then place one or two of your pillows lengthwise to create the same shape. I'm going to grab my blanket and put it at the top just so I have a little extra softness. And then we're going to come into that same position. So we have knees on either side. And I'm going to rest forward. We can put our, sorry, I'm trying to make sure you can hear me. We can put our arms around the support, through the support, anywhere that feels comfortable. So there's another option. If these options don't feel great for you, then we also have our supported forward fold. So we would be seated on the mat with our legs in an outstretched position, with maybe our bolster positioned. Ooh, sorry. Don't know if you heard the audible crack there, but the bolster can be upright. We can use two stacked blocks in any configuration that works for us. And then hinging at the hips, resting our forehead at the top of our pile, our blocks, our bolster for our supported forward fold. And let me demo our chair variation. So once you find the version that feels comfortable for you today. Go ahead and allow yourself to find a little bit of space there to get as comfortable as you can. So again, we can have our bolster upright in front of us for our child's pose. Hinging forward, we can wrap our arms around the bolster. If we have that second chair, we can maybe grab a blanket for a little bit of softness here. Wrap our arms around, place the forehead down or the cheek down. Or can grab our bolster and place it on the chair. Ooh. And then rest forward this way. So we have lots of options depending on what we have available to us and what our body's feeling today. And if none of those feel comfortable today, feel free to type in the chat. Let me know, and we'll find something that does work for you. We might notice ourselves within the position, making any adjustments we need to be a little bit more comfortable. And we might allow ourselves to anchor into the position by noticing the parts of the body that are making contact with the props and the support. If it's comfortable, we might see if we can soften the jaw. And maybe as we inhale, we might notice the back body opening or broadening. And we might let our belly soften on the exhale. If visualizations are helpful, with every breath, we might imagine sinking a little bit closer to the earth. Maybe noticing that steady hum, almost like a heartbeat from the earth. We'll pause for a few minutes here. When we're ready, we'll slowly return to the breath, noticing the inhale and exhale. When we're ready, we might slowly begin to press up into a seated position, either coming through tabletop or anything else that feels comfortable. And we'll begin to set up for our next supported posture. So, our next posture is called um, supported side lying posture. Sorry, I always try to switch the words around. So, for that, we're going to have a few different options. If we're seated, go ahead, relax, take a moment. I will cue your variations after I get folks on the mat set up. So, for this, again, we want to give ourselves options. I'm going to take one block and I'm going to place it down by where my legs will be. We'll be lying across along the mat lengthwise. And we have the option of using a block under the support of the head or a bolster, depending on what we want to use under the ribs. So I'm going to demo first with the blankets. So I'm going to use the bolster as my head pillow. If you have an extra pillow, you can use that as well. We're going to be laying on our sides, and everybody's body is different, so we might need a different level of support under the head. Because I am larger, I have larger arms, larger body. I need something a bit higher to support under the head because my head's going to be quite a bit off the ground. If you're smaller frame, you might need something smaller like a pillow or a blanket. So I'm going to take either one or two of my blankets and fold them into a rectangle like this. Okay. So we might take one. I'm going to take two because that's what I'm used to using. And we just want to make sure that however they're positioned, we aren't laying on any like knots or tassels just because that's going to be uncomfortable. And this is going to come just south of whatever our head pillow is. We're going to leave a bit of space for the arm and the shoulder, which you'll see in a moment. And I like to keep a block on the side. You also can use one of the blankets folded in this same rectangle between the legs. Excuse me. So that when they're stacked, we have a little bit of softness. My legs got plenty of softness already. But I do like to keep a block ready in case one of my legs, sometimes my hip can be a little tender. And sometimes I like to bring the leg forward onto a block. That helps. So just to have it handy in case you choose that option. So from here, we're seated south of our support here. This is going to go right along the rib cage under the arm. So I'm going to come down first onto my shoulder here. Let me move this out of the way so y'all can see. Spread the arm out and then see how this feels with my head. I actually need a block as well today. There we go. Now we can stay here in this position, make any adjustments you need so that you feel like you're supported in the right space. We can leave our arm along the side body, or if we'd rather, we might lift the arm up and let it gently rest over the head. So whatever feels more comfortable. I usually start out over the head, and then if my arm starts to kind of put a little too much weight on my head, then I'll bring the arm back through center. But we can go ahead and stay here if this is comfortable. If you need a different option, go ahead, type it in the chat, and I'll get folks set up in the chair. So we have a few different options in the chair. I'm going to demo the 2-chair option first. Oh, sorry, my hair keeps falling in my face today. So if we have a chair where we can turn to the side, we'll go ahead and do that. So we're sitting comfortably sideways. If our second chair has an arm, we might put a blanket over it for a little bit of softness. And then comfortably rest the arm. So sometimes letting it hang feels comfortable. We might have another pillow here if we feel like I don't kind of like the dangle, or we can fold the arm so the hand has support here. And we're kind of resting the body. Another option that I really like here is to take one of our blankets, bring it into kind of a roll or sausage roll, put that around the neck, and then we can kind of just rest gently. We can also hang it over one shoulder if that's more comfortable. Just kind of allowing the body to rest on one side. If we don't have a second chair, then in our chair, if we can turn to the side, we can have a pillow maybe on the side closest the back of the chair, or if you're near a wall, grab my bolster for that. And we're going to kind of bring the arm to the same type of position. This is, my bolster's a little high, so I'm going to bring it halfway down. And then same thing, we can rest our head. We can also use the, scoot back so you can see here, rest it against the back of the chair or between the chair. If the back of the chair is low enough, we can rest over the chair, or we can lay on our side, leaning on our side against the bolster or a pillow in the wall. Use our little sausage, and I like to hug it, and just relax this way. So any of those that work, if none of those works, again, type in the chat, let me know. Once we've settled into our position, again, we might take a few deep breaths, maybe in through the nose, out through the mouth. Allowing ourselves to be heavy, to be supported. When we're ready, we'll slowly come back to the breath. Noticing our inhale and exhale. We might bring our arm, if it's overhead, back down. We can place it in front of us on the mat and slowly press up onto the elbow, giving ourselves a moment here before slowly making our way up. So we have two options. We can roll over onto the opposite side, or we can rebuild the same prop setup on the other side of the mat. If we're seated, we'll slowly press up and turn to the opposite side. So if we're turning the body, we'll turn the body towards the opposite side, set up our props on that side of the body. So we'll give ourselves a moment to do all of that. And once we're set up or rolled over, we can come back down on our own time. Whenever we're comfortable again, stretching, coming down to the elbow maybe, stretching the arm in front of us, and coming down on the opposite side. And remember, we are asymmetric in mobility and flexibility. So do what works best on this side of the body. It might not look exactly like the opposite side of the body. And again, we might start to notice how the side of our body settles into the support. We might notice how the breath continues to move. And if our mind starts to wander, that's okay. That's what minds do. But you can always return to the moment by noticing one point of contact between our body and the bolster, the mat, maybe the cheek against the bolster or the weight of our hand against the side body. If visualization is helpful, you might imagine you're resting in the curve of a gentle riverbank, the earth rising around you like an embrace. If we're seated, we'll stay in this position a little bit longer. But if we are on the mat, we might again return to the breath, noticing the inhale and exhale. Bring the head down if it's overhead, placing it along the mat, maybe gently using the hand to press up onto the elbow. And then making our way up to seated so we can set up for our next posture. Our next posture will be Mountain Brook. And this again is a posture that can look very different for everyone. So the two pieces that are kind of interchangeable here will be the pillows and the blankets. So I'm going to use the bolster or pillows under my knees. So that will come to the kind of south side of the mat. And I'm going to take my two blankets. I'm going to leave one in this rectangle fold. And this is going to go just beneath the shoulder blades. The second is going to work under my neck. So we have a couple options. If we like to have the head exposed, the face exposed, then we'll roll the bottom of the blanket, and that rolled portion will go under the neck, and then our head will rest on the above portion. If you are someone who likes darkness or likes the feeling of kind of having that blanket kind of over the eyes, some people like it over the whole face. For me, it would just be the eyes. Then we'll open this up a little bit more. We'll still make a fold at the bottom. There we go. And then this piece will leave open so we can reach and pull it over the eyes as a hood. So if once you come into this position, you feel like you're not getting enough of a back bend in this, then what you can do is you can either use the bolster in this position and roll this and place it under your knees. Or you can take two blankets and place them on top of each other, which still are usually a little bit shorter than our bolster. So let me demo this here. So we're going to recline back. Go ahead and move this out of the way for a moment. And bring our legs up onto our bolster. Or we can lay on our side and roll back, whatever's more comfortable. I like having control when I come down. So we want to position ourselves, pull this down a little bit, so that we have space for the top of the shoulders against the mat. We have the roll under the neck. And then if we choose, we can bring the blanket up over the eyes for a bit of darkness. And feel free to adjust. We might need to kind of kick the bolster a little bit more under the knees. The arms can come off to the sides into a T shape. They can come against the body, maybe even lifting up the sides of the blanket if we need to have a little bit more space close to the body if we like. And you can begin to settle into this position here. If we're in the chair, it's going to look a little different for us. We can use our bolster, or we can use two blankets. I'm going to use two blankets. So our first blanket, we're going to fold into a We're going to roll. And I like to have a nice long roll, so I'm opening my blanket up a little bit more. And so if we're seated, we can, of course, rest up, press ourselves up, move our legs forward. We want to have some support behind us. So I'm going to have this, I'm going to set this to the side. And I'm going to grab my second blanket. And I'm going to roll this one into a sausage as well. Okay, so one I'm going to place to cushion the head and neck. This one's a little wide for the head and neck, so I think I'm going to use my other one for that. There we go. And then I'm going to take my second roll, and I'm going to bring this behind me and kind of lock it in, see, so you can see here, with the arms. So it's right around, again, right under the shoulders. I'm going to lean back. And if we need, we can put our bolster or a pillow here to lean back against too, if we want to be a bit more reclined. And we can rest the hands down. If you're lucky like me and you got a bit of a belly, you can tuck your hands under the belly to hold everything in place. Or you can tuck it under the bum or thighs. And here we have our mountain brook. If we like, we can also have our legs up on a chair. But no matter where we are, again, take a moment to find the breath. We might notice how the props lift and support us. Maybe under the knees, under the back, under the head. We might notice where our body is held, where there's space. If it feels comfortable and feels like something we're open to, we might notice the soft opening of the front body through the heart, the belly, the throat. If visualizations are helpful, we might imagine our breath moving like a slow river, flowing through us, gathering calm on the inhale and releasing tension on the exhale. Here we are both rooted and reaching, held and free. Flatten roll, the shoulders squished under the shoulder blades. So it's under, if you feel where the curvature of the shoulder blade is, we want it right underneath the curvature of the shoulder blade so that the shoulders still can reach the ground behind us, the mat, but that the kind of the area beneath that is lifted.
I think too, Mountain Brook is something that we can kind of dial in on. I've had it taught to me both under the the shoulder blades, but also some people rest with the stacked blankets under the shoulder blades, like directly under it. So you're lying with the shoulder blades on top of it. Um, yeah, kind of a dialing in situation, I think. Yeah, great, great. We'll be here for about 2 more minutes. When we're ready, we'll slowly return to the breath, noticing the inhale and exhale. And from here, we're going to transition into our final resting position. So if we'd like to enter Shavasana, we might gently roll off to the right or left side and remove the blanket or support that was behind our back. If we're seated, we might gently release the support behind our back. We can keep the neck roll. And once we have that piece gently removed from our resting area, we can roll back onto the back if that's comfortable. Readjust, maybe trade a blanket for a bolster under the knees if we had the opposite position. We can keep the neck roll under the head if that feels comfortable and something like we enjoy. We can cover ourselves with a blanket.
Oh, sorry about that. Uh, if we weren't able to hear those instructions, let me go ahead and repeat those. If we want to transition into Shavasana, thank you, Miriam. Um, we can gently roll off to the right or left side and remove our blanket or bolster that was under our back. We can keep our roll under the knees or maybe replace it with a bolster if we had a blanket under our knees. We can keep our roll under the neck and the kind of blanket hooded over the eyes if that felt comfortable and like something we enjoyed. If we're seated, we of course can release the blanket that is coming across the back. And we can keep our neck blanket if we like that for support. We might grab a bolster or pillow and hug that for our Shavasana. Or if there's any other position that you would rather rest in, please feel free to come into that. And once we're settled, we might take a few moments to reconnect to the breath, noticing that inhale and exhale. We might start to notice the shape of the body held by the earth, by the props, by the breath. Noticing that presence of our own heart. Much like we notice that gentle hum, that heartbeat of the earth. As we inhale, we might again gather up any loose thread or scattered thoughts, any leftover worries. And as we exhale, imagine gently laying them down beside us. For now, in this moment, we aren't required to solve anything. We're not required to fix anything. For these next few breaths, your only job is to be here. If we like, we can repeat these phrases softly or silently to ourselves. Inhaling, I am safe to settle. Exhaling, I am allowed to rest. Inhaling, I soften into support. Exhaling, I release what I do not need to carry. Inhaling, I belong to this moment. Exhaling, I am home. We'll let ourselves linger here, cradled by our breath, by our body, by the ground beneath us, for the next few minutes. If we are comfortable where we are, we of course can remain here. But if we'd rather, we can start to bring a little bit of movement into the body, maybe the fingers, toes, head, and neck. Taking any movements or stretches that we feel like we need or that would be comfortable. If we like, we might gently roll onto the right or left side and press up to a seated position. Or, of course, we can stay where we are. No matter where we are. If we like, we can bring the hands to heart center or place them anywhere against the body that feels good. And we'll take 3 breaths together in a way that feels comfortable for us. We might take a moment to thank ourselves for making space for rest tonight. And I'd like to thank you so much for sharing your practice with me today. It means so much.